Hello and welcome to Down and Dirty with Darci. I'm your host, Darci Smith, also known as Career Coach Darci. We are here to get down and dirty about careers, uncovering salaries, wild stories, backgrounds, and more from guests with some of the most eccentric professions each week. This podcast is presented by Onomy. Welcome back to Down and Dirty with Darci. Guess what, everybody? Your favorite girl's back. We have Raimee back from Japan.
Wow.
Hi.
Yes, I just landed a day and a half ago and I'm extremely jet lagged. So if I say anything weird, don't hold it against me.
Don't judge her. Yeah, I got a lot of messages. People were like, we don't want to listen to Sam anymore. He kind of sucks. So where's Raimee?
I'm sure. I'm so glad to be back.
I'm so happy you're back. And of course, we have to talk about Japan because that's the most interesting thing in my life currently is that you went to Japan. So give us like just a brief, I actually want to ask you a question. So, and the audience, Raimee posted a TikTok recently and like I think it was on Instagram too, but she talks about how like she almost had the cops called on her in Japan because she didn't physically check out at the hotel when she was leaving. And I'm just curious, like maybe I can count on my hand 5 times that I've actually physically walked up and checked out. I usually just walk away because they have my card.
Exactly.
But you got like so much heat for that, right?
Yeah, it's wild. People are ruthless, as we all know on TikTok, but I just did not expect this response because for one, people are telling me like, oh, clearly you don't travel a lot if you don't check out. I'm like, no, clearly you guys don't travel a lot because I have never checked out of a place. And like I say in the TikTok, I've been literally traveling all over the world for the past 10 years. I cannot remember the last time I had to physically check out. And so for those who want to know the whole story, I'll give a brief version. But basically, I just walked away, as I always do, because this hotel had my card on file. I also did it through booking.com, which also had my card on file. So why would I assume anything else that I need to square away anything? And so I had some unpaid beverages on my room charge. And when I left, the hotel called me and emailed me a bunch saying, if you don't pay us right now or come back to this hotel and pay us, we have no other choice but to call the cops and call the police, whatever. And so I'm freaking out. The Japanese police, they're very big rule followers over there, which I think is very cool. And I respect that. But there's always things that come up when you're traveling that you don't expect. And it ended up being fine.
I'm sure this happens all the time, but now I'm very curious. What did you do? Did you go to a bank and transfer them the money?
Yeah, because they wanted me to come back to the hotel, but it was 3 hours away from where I had just left to travel to. So I had to go to a Japanese bank and do a wire transfer through an ATM there. It was a very strange process that I've never had to do before. And not a lot of people speak English in Japan. And if they do, it's pretty limited. And so it took multiple hours to try to talk back and forth with this person. I need to send this money to a hotel because, it was a whole thing, but.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Dang. Well, all in all, would you go back to Japan?
Oh, I'm already planning. I need to go back. I absolutely loved it. It's one of my top 3 favorite countries now. I think the people were so nice. I mean, this hotel, threatening to call the cops, I don't hold that against them. They don't know.
No.
They don't trust. Obviously, they've been burned in the past. I totally get it, and I cooperated very well with them. And they were really gracious after it was all worked out. And I don't know. The people in Japan are some of the nicest, most respectful, kind people. And I would love to go back immediately. So I highly recommend
that's all I've heard. I don't know if you knew this, but Ryan, my boyfriend / roommate, grew up in Okinawa because his dad was in the military.
Oh my gosh, no way. I learned a lot about Okinawa when I was there because they have a completely different dialect than normal Japanese. And I tried some Okinawan food, and apparently that island is a crazy fun party island vibe is what people in Tokyo were saying. So I would love to go there. It sounds like a great time.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I am curious now that you just said that it's your top 3 because you are the travel girly. So just to tell everybody, what's your other top 2 places? Because you've been to how many countries?
30. I think Japan was my 36th, I think.
Wow. Yeah. So what's the top three?
My top three.
I'm putting you on the spot.
is Iceland. I always say I love the nature there. I also love the people there. They were really nice. And it was very safe. I've noticed, okay, so my top three, Iceland, Japan, and probably Switzerland. And I've noticed that everything in my top three is pretty expensive and also are some of the safest countries in the world, which is why I think I just feel at peace and a good overall vibe whenever I'm in any of those places. And they're all so naturally beautiful with really nice people. And that's what I look for most.
Yeah. I agree. I think safety is huge. I will say I haven't counted my countries. I've been to a decent amount, but I've never been to somewhere where I'm like, I want to go back yet, only because there's just so many places to see. It's hard to be like, I would want to go back. But I do find myself saying the only place that I'm like, I'm dying to get back to is Ireland. And I'm actually going to Scotland. So I'm like kind of doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Similarly.
Yeah. Oh, I love Scotland. Wait, when are you going?
In May. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous.
I know.
I love Scotland. That's a place I would go back to for sure.
I'm so excited. We're doing like the Edinburgh and we're doing Glasgow, but then we're doing a car the whole time, and then we're going up to Speyside, which is like the whiskey trail. So we can drive all around all the distilleries and all that fun stuff and staying in some castles.
I'm so excited for
stoked.
you. Be prepared in Glasgow. You won't be able to understand them. Their English accent is so different, or not English, their Scottish accent. It's wild.
Right.
It's wild.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm actually shocked right now that you haven't mentioned, since this is a sports podcast, the jacket that I'm wearing.
Oh my gosh. Is it opening? Oh yeah. Baseball's on now, right?
Baseball is on. Yeah, it's been on for a little bit. Maybe like 15 games. But this is a starter jacket if you're familiar with like the old school.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, this is Ryan's that he wore when he was a kid. And like it literally has ketchup stains on it and stuff. And it's so cute.
That's so
and he's like,
cute.
I'm so mad that you can wear that because like
it doesn't fit him. Oh my God. Wait, That's so amazing. I've never been to a Dodgers game. I really want to go.
What? That's like a staple in LA. And you've been there how long?
3 years. I know.
Wow. Who are you? Yeah, who are you?
I'm inspired now. This jacket has inspired me. I love it.
Yeah, we're going to Giants because we're up in the Bay, obviously. So Giants are playing the Dodgers right now, and we looked at tickets, and we were just going to get like kind of whatever tickets because it's the beginning of the season, doesn't really matter. And then I realized like it's actually very like inexpensive tickets, so we ended up getting front row seats, like by like in between like first base and home plate.
That's so fun.
Yeah, I was like, I've never in my whole entire life sat that close to a baseball game. So I'm like freaking out, excited.
For as little as I like know about sports, I actually love going to baseball games. It's my favorite. Baseball and hockey games are my favorite to attend.
Hockey's so fun. Oh my gosh. And okay, last night I've been on this kick about like having fun lately because I've been feeling really overwhelmed with work. C'est la vie. So I was like, Ryan, let's start doing stuff like if we can on the weekdays and like really enjoying our life and things like that. So last night we went to a bar and played trivia with some friends I met on Bumble BFF.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
I know, it was so cute. And there was like 5 of us there. We were terrible. I mean, we were middle of the pack.
What was the trivia about? Was there a theme or was it like general?
It was cool. They had a different theme for each round. And like one of the rounds was every answer had to have something to do with the word house. So the question would be like, then you have to think about, okay, how could this relate back to a house or have the word house in it? And then the last round is always like Shazam in real life. So they play, I think it's 10 seconds of a song. And you have to put down the artist and the actual name of the song. And if you get both, you get 2 points. But if you only get one, you get 1 point.
Oh my gosh.
So that's where you can really rack in.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
I have never done a trivia night. I need to do that.
It's fun. And it was a packed. You have to get reservations. Like they go super hard with it. But one of the guys, like one of the girls I met on Bumble BFF, her husband was wicked smart. And so I was like, what would we have done without this guy? Like he was the scribe for us because he just knew everything. Yeah.
Wow, that's so
there
fun.
was a like, where in the country is that, like what country is this in? And they would ask like certain waterfalls and certain like buildings, and he like knew. I was all, excuse me, are you like a historian?
I want to do a travel themed trivia. And I want to do a Harry Potter themed trivia, obviously. But
oh, I'm sure they have Harry Potter themed trivias for sure. Yeah,
I'm inspired to now go to a baseball game and do a trivia night. So
yeah, you're welcome. I'm just here to inspire. That is the goal of this. Speaking of inspiring, I would want to inspire everybody to be confident at work. So let's jump into our career column. I love this question. Okay. How can you tell if the recruiter you are working with has your best interest in mind? Wow. I could probably go on a really long tangent about this, but I'm going to try and keep it short because I think recruiters get a bad rap. There are some really good ones. And then there are some that really only care about making money. So here are some tips that you can use to make sure that your recruiter has your back. Number one is ask the recruiter if you can work with other recruiters. So let's say you're working, I'm going to specify, this is a third-party recruiter. This is not a recruiter that works at the specific company that you're interviewing at. This is a recruiter that works at an agency recruiting firm, and they're helping you get into like multiple types of roles. So you ask this recruiter point blank, say, hey, like I'm really enjoying working with you. Just out of curiosity, like, can I work with other recruiters as well? Or how does this work? Just kind of play dumb, because just so everyone knows you can work with multiple recruiters. If they say to you, oh no, like you just need to work with me, or you should just be working with me, I would prefer that, red flag. They should be having your best interest because if they can't get you into certain companies, there's other recruiters that might be able to. So they should be saying to you 100%, I want you to work with anyone that's going to help you get the best job possible. But I do believe that I work with some really amazing companies and I'm excited for you to meet them. And that should be their pitch of like, I'm just going to try and introduce you and hopefully you pick the companies I introduce you to, but you should still be working with other recruiters. So that is like my number one tip. Always ask that question when you're working with a recruiter. And then my second tip is ask them what you need to know when going into the interview. If they're not prepping you for interviews, if they're not telling you exactly what the hiring manager is looking for, also a red flag. This means they do not have a good relationship with the hiring team and they're just throwing resumes at this hiring team, hoping that someone will stick, hoping that they're going to get paid. So make sure your recruiter is actually prepping you, wanting to talk to you, wanting to help you through, offering to help you with negotiating your deal. They should have your best interests in mind because that's their brand. And if you have a bad experience with them, you will tell people that you had a bad experience and they're not going to have a good reputation. So those are two big things that you can use when you're working with a recruiter on what to know and what to ask them. That was our career column for the week. And I wanted to talk a little bit about our guest because she is a personal friend of mine. Funny enough, personal friend, but I met her through the internet, like most of my friends these days. Her name's Mallory. She is Fueling Financial Freedom on Instagram. And you've probably heard me talk a lot about her. The thing I love about her is she's so real. Like that is how I connect with people on the internet, when I can tell that they're just the way they are in real life. But she talks a lot about confidence and behind money and things like that. And there's a lot of money talk people on Instagram. And I feel like she does like a negotiations course. She just recently became pregnant. And so she's talking a lot about like the plans of, people say you're never ready for a kid and things like that. And I'm going to ask her about this. And she's like, I knew when I was ready because I planned for it financially specifically. So she's like, I don't really believe that, of course you're never ready in the sense of kids change everything. But she was like, I really felt like I was ready at that time. So I'm so excited to chat with her and I think you guys will love it. And yeah, here comes Mal. Let's go.
And here's the other thing I'm going to share. And this is kind of embarrassing, but I added this up today and the total of everything on my baby registry right now. So this isn't even like all of the things, but it's most of it. The total for my baby registry is...
Hi, Mallory. Welcome to the podcast. I always call you Mal. Do you go by Mal or Mallory? Okay.
Call me Mal. Call me Mal.
Thanks I was like, I always call you Mal.
Thanks for having me. Do you go by Dirty Darci?
Only Dirty Darci now from now on. I know I was thinking about like what kind of merch I could do for the podcast. And I'm like, who's going to wear like a down and dirty merch sweater? Like it's like ridiculous. So I have to think of something more clever than that. But circle back. we'll circle back to it.
Okay. All right. I'll be on the lookout. I don't have any good ideas right now.
Okay. So, well, thank you so much for coming on. Mal and I are friends from meeting over the internet. I think, you DM'd me or something? You did, right?
I did. Yes. I actually found you because I heard you on another podcast and I was like, I really like this girl. Followed you on Instagram, and
yeah,
you just gave me the vibe that I like. And I don't know, there was something that you said one day and I had something to say back to you and I sent you a message, and then
the rest is history. We have like little like monthly Zooms and we like hang out and just chat all things. She's like my coworker that I don't get to have because I don't have any. But can you go ahead and tell, I was like, can you tell everyone just a little bit about who you are? I love to always ask, like, tell me about yourself. So give us a little rundown.
Of course. So my name's Mal. I am a money mentor or money coach, whatever you want to call me. My mission is to help women improve their financial literacy and just feel more comfortable when it comes to things like long-term financial planning, specifically investing, negotiating, getting paid your worth, and then also budgeting and some of those other fine-tuned things too. Think of me as like a female Dave Ramsey, but I'm actually relatable. There's no mansplaining, and I don't believe in sacrifice on your financial journey as it relates to things that you value. Yes, there are going to be areas where you do need to sacrifice in order to have enough saved for retirement or something like that, but it's not truly sacrifice if you're just not spending in areas where you don't see a lot of value at the end of the day. So you will never hear me shame people for eating out while they have credit card debt or whatever that is. It's more about education and how to cater your personal finances to you with a very educated approach, because us women, particularly, are not as involved in personal finances typically in relationships, and we just don't learn this stuff in school. So I've done a lot of hard work to teach myself, and after the pandemic hit, it really opened my eyes to how many people out there are just lacking this education. So I started talking about it on the internet, and I think we're a few thousand followers deep now and still rolling.
Thousand. You're over 10,000, girl. Shut up. I know you are.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's actually like 11 now, and it's pretty nutty. For me.
I'm so happy for you. No, I'm so happy for you.
For some people, that's nothing, but
no, you're amazing at what you do. You're so relatable. And honestly, like the way that you break things down, especially in your stories, I've had so many people after posting about you on my stories, they're like, I went and followed her. She has such amazing stuff. Like she really goes super deep. Like even when you go on vacation, you talk about exactly how much you spent, how you got there, how you used credit card points. Like I am like chomping at the bit. My favorite one that you did, I'm amped right now. My favorite one that you did was when you talked about like the trust. It was like the same time I was actually meeting with my lawyer, and Ryan and I were doing a trust and like all that sort of stuff, and how important it is no matter where your assets are in terms of like, I feel like everyone just is like, oh, you have to be rich or, old to have a trust. And it's like, no, start now. You can always add to it.
Really, everyone, if you own anything, you need one. And maybe it's not a trust, maybe it's a will, but as an estate plan period,
yes, definitely. I want to jump right into your pregnancy. Really good segue there. Let's
go. There's another human here, everyone.
Yeah, this is actually the first time she's saying it on this podcast. Just kidding. So Mal, the reason I want to jump in is because I think it's obviously I don't have kids. I have not been pregnant, but I always hear people tell me like, you just never know when you're ready. You're never going to be able to really plan for it. And I just don't believe that. So I want to know from your standpoint, did you feel ready? Do you feel ready, both just in general and especially financially?
Yeah. So emotionally, and just as far as like preparedness for all of the random things that are going to be unique to your child and your body that are going to happen, it's hard to be super prepared. But I do think that you can feel ready from that perspective, like the mental, physical aspect,
right?
That arm of it, we're going to call it. From a financial perspective, I do think that it is a lot more black and white. Like you're ready, you're not, or maybe there's a little bit of gray area, but that was the big piece for me in determining if I was ready. I was someone that always knew I did desire to have children. I wouldn't say I always knew how many or anything like that, but I knew it was something that I desired. For me and my husband included, it was, let's get some certain financial things in place before we have children, because kids are not props. And kids cost a lot of money. And naturally, I think as well, as we've waited a little bit to have kids. So I'm 32 years old. And so is my husband, which I don't think is abnormally late at all, but some people might think that. It's definitely late in the eyes of maybe some of our parents or grandparents.
Right.
But for us, we've matured a little bit as we progress on our financial journey. And now we're in a place where like, okay, you know, we financially are ready to have children. And for us, what that looked like was being, number one, on track or ahead of schedule for our own retirement. And I think that's really important for everyone, no matter what your financial wishes are, because we all have, we're all going to reach a point where we can't work one day, and there are no loans for retirement. So you don't want to sacrifice being ready there or having that ability to be ready, just because what will happen is your child will pay the price at the end of the day. There are a lot of people out there, and people that are probably listening to this podcast right now, get in a position where they are under financial pressure because they have to care for their parents when they're older, because their parents are not prepared for retirement. And it's super costly as you age and you can't work and you have all of these natural health issues that arise when you get old. And so to put that weight on your children is really heavy. And especially heavy if, you know, say right now, millennials that might be going through this, who are having to take care of a parent, have student loans, and oh, by the way, houses are like really expensive to buy. And maybe they want to have their own kids too. So for us, that was the biggest thing. And we went a couple steps further. But I think that's the biggest thing, trying to gauge if you are financially ready for children. Can you, number one, afford to care for the child? And there's a lot of expenses that I can talk through that come with that, from daycare to just basic needs, basic human needs. And then number two, are you financially set up to be okay, or tracking to be okay for your retirement when you decide to have a kid? I think that's really important. And I think that's the honest miss for a lot of people. And that's not to say that they can't catch up, because there are a lot of people who have kids young and then their careers boom and, you know, they live modestly, or they choose not to pay for their child's education, or they make other decisions that allow them to get in an appropriate position. But that was the biggest thing for us. And not only did we want to be prepared for retirement, we wanted to be ahead of schedule so that we could be in a place where we could potentially retire early and be more present for our children when they're in high school and some of those key years. Yeah. So that was the biggest thing for us. And like I said, we went a little bit more above and beyond before we decided to have kids, just because I want to have the option to, if one of us doesn't want to work, we want to have those options. You just never know what cards you're going to get dealt when you have children. And
I love it.
You know, God forbid, knock on wood, we had a child with, say, disabilities or anything like that. We want to be able to be present and be the parents that we desire. And in America, that unfortunately costs a lot of money to do.
And I think from your standpoint too, it was like you basically sat down and looked at everything from beginning to end of what could possibly happen. And it's important to talk about like worst case scenario situations, because you do want to feel quote unquote prepared for that. And I think a key takeaway here just from everything you shared is kind of gets me thinking about, Ryan and I have sat down and like planned out, you're never going to know specifically, right? But we've planned out like 20 years from now, what we want our lives to look like, how much money we want in the bank, how much assets we want in terms of if that looks like houses or whatnot. And a part of that is, to me, I'm a little woo-woo, so it's a little bit of manifestation. But another part of that is legitimate. These are things that I want, and how do I get there, and how do I work backwards to get there? And for us, like, if that is including kids, we have to build that into the mix, you know, fingers crossed, all the things that we could have them, right? But it's one of those things. So I think it's just really cool that you've shared this journey, especially with your followers and with everyone kind of, I know you get tons and tons of questions kind of about, especially because you have a regular job too. We didn't even mention that. Regular job. So you do the Instagram, you sell courses, you are constantly talking and helping people through problems that they're having money wise. And all the while you're working a full-time job. What do you do full-time?
I work as a senior product marketing manager in telecommunications. So I'm in a more tech focused role at a telecom company. I work specifically in app development. So the company that I work for has a app that is used by millions of their customers on a daily basis. And my role is focused on a few specific features and products within the company's flagship app. I'm really in charge of go-to-market strategy, the customer experience, and having that consumer lens in between, say, like the developers and engineers that helps thread the needle, bring the product to market, bring the experience to market in a way that satisfies the consumer needs, and obviously at the end of the day, delivers value and ROI to the company. That's my role.
And how did you... Yeah, that was an amazing explanation. How did you, I have like a few follow-up questions, but number one, anyone that's listening that got excited to hear about that, because you work in tech, but you're not a software engineer.
No.
You know some things about that world, but that's not what you do. How did you get into this? Like, what is the pathway that you, Mal, took to get this role?
So actually, if you looked at my resume just coming out of college, you would never guess that this is where I would be. I graduated with a fashion degree from the University of Missouri. So not a notable school, and honestly degree that I got because I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. And I had a couple mess ups, a few semesters that were mess ups. And so my GPA was not great. It disqualified me from some other things that I wanted to explore. And so I kind of just landed in this world of like, I could picture myself working at corporate retail, and I like fashion. And so I landed myself in this degree. I really did not know what I wanted to do. I was not a great student, which I think was driven by the fact that I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I bounced around. So I graduated with a fashion degree, and I really worked my way into this role, building my skill set through a few different positions at a few different companies. So I started right out of college working for a big box retailer, a discount retailer, and I was a buyer. So I was in buying, and that is really where my interest for financials perked up, because there's a lot of financial acumen that goes into being a retail buyer. When you're thinking about managing inventory and pricing and all of those things, I learned the ropes there. I got the pulse of corporate America and kind of how business works, and decided that there were some things going on with this company financially. They actually ended up going bankrupt. I saw some writing on the wall and decided, I want to expand my career into a company where I can take this skill set that I got here and have a little bit more potential. So I applied for a role at a company in Kansas City, Hallmark Cards. Probably familiar with Hallmark. And I went there next, and I started working in their retail division, and I was hired as a buyer in their retail division. So it was a direct transfer, but I was excited about the opportunity because the company had a lot more to offer besides just retail. So it was kind of a goal of mine to get more into the true core business of cards or something like that versus their retail stores, although that's how I got in. So worked in retail, did my thing, met the goals, did all the things they asked me to do, got a promotion, put in my time, and decided from that point on, okay, I started to see some things going on in the tech industry. I felt like there was a lot of iffiness in the retail industry. And I thought, I really want to get into e-commerce somehow and get some digital experience while I'm at Hallmark, because I've established myself as strong talent. And I think someone will bet on me to put me in a role where I can acquire these skills. So I networked my booty off. Hallmark is one of those companies that was like huge on networking and like getting coffee with people. And I did that. I was like a crazy networker.
Oh, I love that.
And so I networked with all these people. This position came open. I applied. I got the job. And what I was doing for Hallmark at that time for about 2 years, I worked in their e-commerce division, and I was in charge of developing a new app that they were working on at the time, which was an app that you could get in, you could design a card from someone, and it would send it to them from your phone, like a physical card though, not an e-card.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So that is where I got my toe in the water with kind of a product marketing lens from an app perspective. And I also got some e-commerce experience there. The role was a lot, to be frank. It was kind of one of these niche positions that they made up, and it was me and one manager who were working on it. And the work-life balance was not healthy, but I learned a lot. And so in 2020, when, everything hit the fan, and especially as a retail company, Hallmark was struggling pretty much in every division except for e-commerce. My role was safe, but my work-life balance was just insane. I was getting slammed, and I was like, you know what? This is not sustainable. And I think it's time for me to figure out how I can transfer the skill set elsewhere. So I started looking for other jobs, and I was kind of limited because I was not willing to leave Kansas City at the time. This is where I live today. Our whole family is here. My husband and I actually went to high school together. So we have everyone here, and I'm definitely someone who values time and being around family. So I wasn't willing to leave Kansas City. So I was a little bit narrow from that perspective, but I saw an opening for the job that I have today and applied. I knew not a soul at the company. People always ask me, well, who did you know, that vouched for you? I didn't know anyone. And I ended up getting the role in this job. And I was actually terrified because when I interviewed, my VP at the time was like an ex-Microsoft guy. It was like the hardest interview I've ever had in my life. My boss to this day, my director, he's a very educated, like Stanford MBA grad. And all of my peers that I interviewed with were men who had a lot more years of experience on their resume. And I was kind of like, wow, am I qualified? Like, they're really considering me. So I had a lot of doubt, I would say, but I got into the role, and my eyes were just open to the value that I was able to bring. And my skill set is really desired now. And I've been able to prove myself and launch some pretty amazing things for the company. So that is a very long-winded answer of how I got there. But I wanted to share that whole path because it was definitely strategic, but you could say that it was like entirely self-taught along the way. And for context, I mentioned I was 32 earlier. I did graduate when I was 22. So this was like a 10-year span where this happened. Progression.
If you don't mind sharing, what were you making money-wise when you left Hallmark?
Yeah, I was making $90,000, and I had no incentives. So I did not have a bonus at my level. I did not have any sort of, the company's private. So there was no equity or anything like that. So it was like my salary, that was it. Obviously I did have health benefits, and I had a pretty standard, like 5% 401k match. And I think it was actually like 91 and some change when I left. Like it was right around $90,000.
Did you, when you left and got this next job, did you negotiate your salary? Like the offer that you got?
I did. So I knew that the position that I was being hired for paid more because I did my research and I had the market data, and it was actually a manager level position. So I was going from kind of an associate position to a manager level position. Although it did not include people management, it was considered to be a manager level position. So I did. And my total compensation, my base salary increased by like 30%. My total compensation increased, I can't remember because I've since been promoted. So my bonus percentage has changed, and the restricted stock units or RSUs that I receive has since changed. But that was also something that I negotiated as well, was equity.
How did you know how to do that? Did you teach yourself?
I did. I would say I did. And I also consulted a few people, and I leaned on some prior experience. So while I was at Hallmark, I've shared this story before, but while I was at Hallmark, I negotiated a pretty big raise on the spot. In one occasion where I felt like there was opportunity, and I went to my manager, had a one-off conversation. It was not during a year-end review or anything like that, and basically just presented data and said, hey, here's X, Y, Z, what I've done. I was so scared to do this. She immediately looked at me and was like, I agree. How much do you want? And thank goodness I had a number in my head, and it was a big, crazy number. It was like a $30,000 raise. And I said it, and they came back and matched it immediately. So that just helped my confidence when it came to negotiating. Yeah. So that was my first big negotiation at Hallmark. And that helped me in this next negotiation externally. But I did also consult some people that I just like knew who had experience negotiating, but I really I just used my emotional intelligence and the market data that I had. So I know that doesn't come naturally to everyone, but I knew the levers that I had to pull. I knew the value that I could bring, and I knew what they wanted from me. And so I just asked for it and figured, hey, the worst they can say is no, or we meet in the middle, or I walk and like,
what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
I met with someone yesterday who she just got a new job, and I always ask people this now. I'm like, did you negotiate your offer?
Yeah.
And she was like, I did. Like, she's like, I was so proud of myself. I really did. They didn't give it to me, but I still feel really good about it because I asked. And
exactly.
What was, then at that point, the ball's in my court, and I can either walk away and say no, thank you, or I can still look at it like a great opportunity. And I still feel like I didn't leave anything on the table. And that's the most important thing.
Yep.
So
it is.
Yeah. So since going to that position, you've moved up a couple times in your role. Are you comfortable sharing with us what you make now in your position?
Yeah. So my total compensation, I'll just give you the total compensation number, which includes my base, my bonus, and then the RSUs that I receive, and they vest over a 3-year period. So taking that into...
I'm going to stop you because I know there's going to be people listening that have no idea what RSUs are.
Yes, restricted stock units.
A small...
Restricted stock units.
But like,
So basically what it is it's shares of if you work for a public company, it's really common in tech more common in tech that you will see restricted stock units given as part of compensation to more employees, like even below manager level. Like at my company, every single band, every level of employee receives some sort of restricted stock units. For some people, it may be really, really small. And obviously for people like the CMO and CF, it's insane. But at my company, everyone receives RSUs. It's just kind of paid out by or determined by your job band. In other public companies, it may be at the executive level only. It may be for specific, high potential talent that they give them to. So you're only going to find this for the most part, like true restricted stock units at a public company. But basically what it is they give you shares of the company every single year as part of your compensation. And those shares of the company have a vesting schedule, which means that they don't just give you 50 shares of the company and like it's yours today. It's a retention strategy. So you may receive 50 shares, and those 50 shares are going to vest over a 3-year period. So next year, a third of those shares will become yours. And then the following year, a third of those shares will become yours. And the longer you stay, the more that vests, because each year you get another chunk, and they kind of layer on like a ladder. I've also heard of companies that will give you RSUs, but they don't vest for like 10 years. So if you hit 10 years, then you get this like massive chunk. So anyways, there may be different vesting schedules, but RSUs are part of my compensation that I receive annually. and they vest over a 3-year period. So I'm always getting something. And like this year is my 3rd year at the company. So I have 3 different chunks of RSUs that are all vesting.
Nice.
So anyways, it's just kind of, that's that. So in total, my compensation, my base salary, and the RSUs that will be vesting this year, in addition to my bonus, is just under $200,000.
Wow, that's amazing. And I just want to reiterate that anyone that meets with me as a career coach and says, oh, I got my degree in fashion, I got my degree in something that I just could never use, and now I feel like I have to go back to school to get into tech or to get into these other things, I literally yell at them. I'm like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
You just have to
and I
network a
refuse
little
to
bit.
go back to school.
Get someone that'll give you a little bit of a chance, meet people, ask how they got in. I mean, just have conversations, but more so than not, you can do what Mal did and just apply. Like, just apply, because the worst thing that I see is so many people talk themselves out of applying to a job, and it frustrates me to my core, because especially women, it's like there's statistics out there that state women will apply to less jobs than men because they feel like that imposter syndrome feeling, and they meet only 50% of the criteria, whereas men meet 20%, and they're like, oh yeah, that role's for me, that's mine, that's my role. So let's stop doing that. And also, it is super important. I mean, I went to school for business, and I specifically did that because I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I just thought, I'll just get a business degree and then I'll figure it out later. And then there's people that go to school for computer science, or like even a lot of people I talked to that went the med school route and they don't want to be a doctor. And they ask me, what can I do now? And I'm very specific with them and saying, you don't need to go back to school just to get that other degree. No. Just use what you have. We all have a college experience is what it is. It's not one thing or the other. Like, obviously there's certain skills, but anyways, it's really cool to hear that you're at basically a 200K level coming from a fashion degree into tech. So thank you so much for sharing that with us and sharing that story, because I know it's going to help people. So
yes,
I really appreciate it.
I just have to echo Darci. I am big on figure out how you can just expose yourself to things that are going to be valuable and take a nugget and build on it, because that is what got me to where I am. And I don't even know that I would be accepted back to a school, to be honest, because my undergrad GPA is like a 2.9. So seriously, don't they look at that stuff for MBA? I love
that about you.
I mean,
that is so funny.
But I'm a valuable person. I wouldn't, 7 years ago, if you asked me, like, I would have like never told anyone what my GPA was like that I graduated with. I was that person that like nonchalantly left it off my resume and hoped no one asked, or put like rounded up to a 3.0 or something. But you do not.
Yeah, just lie.
I mean, in some cases, you might need to go back to school if you want to go from business to nursing. No, you can't just work your way into becoming a nurse or a doctor. But there are definitely ways that you can figure out how to leverage your skill set to get into certain roles. And then you'll learn more in those roles that will, who knows where it will lead you to.
Definitely. Yeah. And speaking of GPA, I just have to say, I was in college and I got my first B ever. I ended up getting a 3.9 in college, and I cried my eyes out.
Darci's very different than me.
I remember going to the professor and literally saying, this is so embarrassing, sitting in her office. I was 20, and I'm crying like a baby. And I'm like, I forget her name right now, but I'm like, Mrs. Whatever, I cannot get a B. Like, I've worked so hard my entire life. And she was like, this is going to be good for your character.
Yeah. I was like, hey, I kind of have to agree with her.
How rude. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Looking back, it's hilarious, because now I'm like, I don't need that degree. I mean, there's definitely certain areas where you would need it, right? And I did go to grad school, so I needed something, but definitely didn't matter between a 3.9 and a 4.0. No.
And GPA does matter.
Don't let that stop you.
In some cases, obviously.
Yeah, kids, it matters.
It does matter in some cases, but your life is not over. And your life is not over if you graduate with a random degree and a low GPA. I am living proof. Your life is not over, and your income potential is not capped. Like, truly, I preach this on my page, but the abundance mindset with money is so important. We print new money every single day in this country, and you have some skill set that you can tap into that people are going to value, and there's not a cap on what your income potential is. There is a cap on what your expenses can be, but your income potential is truly unlimited.
Right. So I want to wrap this up with two things. One, I want to share one of my favorite things that I've learned from you. And it was because I took your negotiator course that you have.
Oh, girl,
and
I can't wait to hear this.
I love it. You share scripts because it's not something that I have considered doing. Like, it's just not in my mindset, right?
Yeah.
I don't think about, I'm going to call my credit card company and ask them to lower my annual rate.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I pay $550 a year for my Amex because I use the one where I can, get do all the fun things at Delta.
Yep.
So, right. And so, you have scripts on there where you literally walk people through exactly, like, picking up the phone. Here's exactly what you could say to somebody if you want to lower your annual interest rate, if you want to negotiate an Airbnb, which if anyone is listening, please do not call me and try and negotiate my Airbnb because I will say no. But there are tons of people. I actually have done that before on an off season.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed they weren't getting bookings. And so I said, hey, like, I'm coming with my family. Would you be willing to do a 10% off? And they said yes. So she has all of that on there. So that was my favorite thing that I've learned from you. I want to know from your perspective, and this is probably a tough question, but what is one thing you can leave people with when it comes to that money mindset that you feel like maybe you've been able to help people with so far?
Yeah, I should be quicker to answer that question, but it is. I gotta think on it, like you said, like I said, but
people always ask me
honestly,
that with careers. Like, what's one thing?
The biggest thing I think that my story and what I do in my business and on my Instagram page, the most impactful thing for people is that unlike a lot of other things in life, anyone can learn and be good at personal finance and can outperform some of the smartest, most educated people. There are millionaires next door whose index fund portfolio of retirement investments are outperforming the hedge funds on Wall Street because these super educated hedge fund managers are trying to pull all these levers and beat the market, and no one can predict the market. And that is really unique in personal finance. And it's something that you don't inherently realize. You think, oh, I have to be smart and I have to be educated and I have to come from this rich family to be able to have X, Y, and Z. And that's so not the case. It does take some education and some time and some money to maybe invest and improve your financial literacy, because we don't learn these things in school. And if you weren't taught them inside your home or in your circle of people, you do have to take the time to teach yourself. But truly, there are no GPA requirements. There are no education requirements to be financially successful, quote unquote. And I think I'm a really good example of that just personally in my life, and my husband included. And that's probably the biggest thing that my content, I would say the biggest impact my content makes on people is it's just take a little time to educate yourself, and you would be so surprised where you can end up in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah. I feel like we're so lucky that we do have Google
at our
fingertips.
And YouTube, yes.
And and the amount of information that you can learn out there, and from following people like you, honestly, like, I'm not just trying to pump your tires. I truly believe in what you talk about, and I share your page all the time.
Right back at you.
Not because you asked me to. Yeah, I'm like, it's not because you asked me to. It's because I really see the value in it, and I appreciate how real you are with money talk and everything like that, and how much I value transparency. So I know it's not easy to talk about, like, money that you're making and stuff. So I just thank you so much for being so open about that.
Of course.
And I know it's going to help people. And I know you're going to get a lot of followers, and they're going to ask you all the things. So
okay, but I have a couple of things that I need to share back on the childhood thing.
Oh, yes.
Maybe, I don't know if the producer can edit this back in, or we'll just end it on this. I wrote these in my phone, and I should have looped it in earlier when we were talking about financially preparing for kids. But this is just some context that has even surprised me. Someone who is very methodical and calculated about when I was going to have kids and Trust me, I thought I knew what it was going to cost, but really I didn't. I knew like what daycare costs and, I knew what my health insurance deductible would be because trust me, you are going to hit that when you're pregnant and you're going to tons of exams and you're going to have a baby. But here's some numbers that will kind of, I think, maybe give a click to people when you think about financially preparing for children. So the average cost of childcare annually is $15,000, which is right around, it's actually $14,760. So it's $1,200 a month. And I can tell you that's conservative. I live in Kansas. I live in Kansas City, and finding a daycare for $1,200 a month is not easy. So that's pretty conservative. So for context, if your household income is $200,000 annually, that's going to be about 12% of your net income after taxes. And that doesn't include any contributions that you're making either pre-tax or post-tax to retirement. And 12% of your net income is a lot of money. And there are a lot of households out there that aren't making, $200,000 because that's above average. So not to mention as well, that's just childcare, not what it costs to, simply just keep your child alive, to feed them, diapers, clothing, medical expenses, sports. I did a poll on my page one time and got submissions. I should do it again. What people pay for their children's activities, like not just sports, but like activities in general.
Yeah.
You guys, it's
extracurricular.
Insane. Especially if you have kids that get into like super competitive. For example, for me, I did one of the most expensive sports you could do. I did gymnastics. And because of the volume of hours that you have to practice and the competitions that you have to go to that are out of state, and the fact that it's not a high school sponsored sport where you just like join the high school team and a lot of things is, like the coach is funded by the school and things like that. It's expensive. So anyways, that was crazy. But, I thought that was eye-opening. And here's the other thing I'm going to share. And this is kind of embarrassing, but I added this up today, and the total of everything on my baby registry right now, which mind you, doesn't include some really big items that I just wasn't comfortable putting on my registry. My husband and I just bought ourselves, or a couple of them, our parents were like very generous and got them for us for Christmas. So this isn't even like all of the things, but it's most of it. The total for my baby registry is $6,978. Oh, I should have let you guess.
I know. I was like, let me guess. Okay, wait. I interrupted you, so say it again.
$6,978 is the total for everything on my baby registry. And that is, yes, I will say there are some areas where am I going with the most budget-friendly item? No. I am spending in alignment with my values there. Like, just one thing for me, everyone has things that they value, with everything in life. For me, I'm really big on like non-toxic products and different things like that. So, like the bathing, my mom called me the other day and she was like, the bath stuff you have on here is so expensive. I was like, well, I wanted, fragrance free, and I didn't want any of the harsh chemicals in it. Anyways, that's just something that I value. Right. You can laugh at me and whatever, but so it's not, everything on there is not budget friendly, but I will say I'm not like going over the top. I am getting things that are pretty essential, and there are, I'm sure, things that are missing that I'm going to have to buy because I didn't want to put anything on my registry that wasn't like, you certainly need this. And we're looking at $7,000. Right. I mean, I've looked at registries of people's showers and, friends of mine that easily, I'm sure, are $15,000 in total. So, definitely. I mean, that's easily $10,000 worth of stuff just to get your baby through the first maybe 6 months to a year.
That's crazy.
And then, yeah,
you're really
giving
me birth control right now. I
tell my friends to be it that way, but it is, you just don't realize too. Yeah. And if you live, we're extremely fortunate to live near family where that help will be huge. Right. After baby comes, and just, like we're probably rarely going to have to hire a babysitter and things like that. So while we are paying for some childcare, if we want to go on date night, it's not going to cost us $150 to hire a babysitter on top of what's going to cost us to go on date night. So
Right.
it's expensive. And it's even like I said, like for me, I've been shocked, and it's a faucet of expenses that once you turn it on, there is no turning it off. So I think it's important
just one
to
baby.
think about. Yeah. And that's just one baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have
baby.
multiple. I mean, it's the child tax credit is only $2,000 per year. Okay. You got to fund this yourself. Which there are definitely financial assistance programs if you fall into like certain income categories and things like that. But, if you're your average middle class person, you're not going to qualify for those. And this is all going to have to be self-funded, in addition to, like I mentioned earlier, making sure that your financial future is secure so that you're not burdening your children when you're 80 and you don't have enough money to support yourself.
Right. Definitely. Well, can you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yes.
And all of the social things?
Yes. You can find me at Fueling Financial Freedom on Instagram and on TikTok. And I'm not as good as TikTok. So Instagram is really where I'm at right now, working my full-time job and doing my thing. I pour a lot of energy into my Instagram. I also have a website, www.fuelingfinancialfreedom.com. That's where you can check out more information about some of my courses, like Darci mentioned, the negotiation course. And that's where you can find me. I hope to see you guys coming on over. And thanks for having me, Darci.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. It was so great. And thanks for sharing everything with us. But you can stay on. But
yes, thank you so much.
I'll talk to you very soon. Okay, bye.
Thanks for listening to that Onomy podcast. Onomy is a creator-led educational platform that teaches you the things you wished you learned in school so you can thrive in adulthood. Onomy lessons are completely free, and they're taught by some of your favorite creators from around the internet. Head to onomy.co to start learning about things like budgeting, investing, taxes, how to thrive in your relationships, how to find your dream job, and so much more. That's onomy.co. onomy.co. See you there.